Good evening, everyone, and welcome into Sportszone. I'm your host, Justin Ballou. Well, Mean Green Nation, it is time to put on those bowling shoes because the Mean Green football team is officially headed back to the postseason for a second straight year. UNT will travel up to Birmingham this Saturday to take on the UAB Blazers. And here to preview this weekend's matchup, we have analysts Nick O'Gele and Brandon Brown. Now, guys, before we get into these specific matchups, the homecoming win last weekend was epic. Big game this Saturday. Just give me your thoughts, Nick, on going bowling at 6-4 now on the season.
Hey, it's good to see it being like at this point. I mean, this point in the season, we should be playing our best football and everything like that. So it's good to see it not being the last game of the season like it has been in previous years for us to be knowing for sure that we're going bowling. And you know what going bowling to me means is that saved Coach Luttrell's job for another year. Man. So depending on how you feel about that man right there, I'm gonna let that be as it may. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, Seth Luttrell's job is probably a little more safe than it maybe was a few weeks ago.
Tell us how you really feel.
I mean, maybe he's, pulling some new tricks out of his hat. Maybe in the American he'll actually be decent, but it is really nice, like you said, to know this early on that we are going bowling and that it definitely feels like we're a little bit more of a dominant team this year. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and say, oh, we're this great football team this season, we're really dominant, but it is nice to have that feeling of, okay, we are second place. There's a good chance we're going to the CUSA Championship.
Yeah, 10 games in, they're officially going bowling. It took them 12 games last year, too.
Yeah.
So let's go back to homecoming weekend last Saturday. 52-14 was the final over FIU. Austinani, what a game from him. 414 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions as well. But what did you think of his game, Nick? And was that the best game he's played this season?
Hey, you said it. It was not only the best game he's played this season, but the best game of his entire career. Wow. He threw the most passing yards he's thrown for his career, the 414. And despite the 2 interceptions that were, one of them was untimely and could have gave FIU some momentum, unneeded momentum, but definitely 5 touchdowns. He's never done anything like that. We say he can't push the ball down the field. We say we can't run the offense through him. He's he's heard us. Maybe he's tuning in or something. Maybe you're one of our viewers. But Austin, if you're out there, keep doing what you're doing. That five TDs is impressive.
Yeah, he really was locked in on this game. There was many plays where he looked very rushed by the opposing front seven, and he was able to make good reads under pressure and make those tight passes. He looked really alert, really on, and he really made the most of his opportunities in this game.
Yeah, he threw 2 picks, but how about this Mean Green defense getting those 2 interceptions back off Grayson James? What did you think of just another dominant defensive effort from this Mean Green team, Nick?
They had them in cuffs. They were locked up. They couldn't really FIU, it was amazing to see them not be able to move the ball, especially with this defense that we scrutinize all the time for not being there on the field, maybe at all. So especially with the secondary holding that quarterback to 100 and something, under 200 yards, and then holding that running game to under 100 yards combined. There was a couple running backs that got a bite at the apple there. So it was really good to see that. Absolutely.
Yeah, dominant effort from start to finish in that game. Brandon, just defensively, what did you think of the effort there?
I really like the effort, especially from the backfield, like you said. I think Logan Wilson, also a name who had a really good game, really went a little undernoticed, but really great effort from this backfield. I'm really hoping that this front seven can really make that leap that this backfield has tended to make in these last few weeks.
We're going to need another dominant effort this Saturday against UAB, guys. This is going to be a big game. UNT could, I believe they could clinch a spot in the Conference USA Championship game. I haven't seen that confirmed, but I don't see any scenario how if UNT wins this game, they don't make the CUSA Championship game. So, Nick, how important is this game? And give me some keys to beating UAB.
Well, for one thing, I hope every week is considered homecoming week because that's what it seems like we need to come out dominant. But I don't feel like it'll take as big of an effort. It should. Now, we should view it as the same. Don't overlook this UAB team. They are, the record is what it is, 4-5, and they are towards the bottom of the conference in conference play, but eighth on conference play. But all of the games that they've lost have been, or most of them at least, have been 1 score or just slightly more, like 7 points. They've lost most of their games there. So it could really, that's the difference. It could really flop either way. They're that close from being 4-5 to being, 7-2 or something like that. So, you really got to look at it that way and don't undervalue or overlook this team.
Yeah, they've underperformed record-wise, but they're still a good defense. They're really well coached. So, Brandon, just give me some keys to the game and how big of a game is this?
So our front seven's really going to have to step up this game because that's the thing. This UAB offense, it's pretty weak, but their rushing attack is effective. They have a really good running back on that team in McBride. Our front seven's going to have to make that effort like our backfield made this game. really going to have to step up, and then offense is just going to have to keep rolling, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to have to make sure our rushing is just as good as our passing this time.
And remember, guys, this is a revenge game. So if you need any motivation, last year they beat us like 40-6 or something, I think it was. So if it means anything, it doesn't really mean that much. I mean, other than putting us over the top and getting us what we need. But that it is a revenge game. 46, remember that.
UNT 1-5 all-time against UAB, and a revenge win would mean a revenge matchup against UTSA, most likely in that Conference USA Championship game. Well, coming up next, basketball season is back here in Denton. We're going to break down the men's and women's teams coming up next.
Texas, donde nuestro orgullo, fuerza y solidaridad mantienen nuestro espíritu en alto a medida que avanzamos. Mostrando nuestro orgullo en decir "Don't mess with Texas", quiere decir que tenemos que ponernos a la altura, forjar el camino, poner de nuestra parte para mantener a Texas limpio y seguro. Porque después de todos estos años, todas estas millas, todas estas tradiciones, para nosotros los tejanos, "Don't mess with Texas" significa no tires basura.
Prescription drug pricing points to corporate
Freedom of the press is about your right to know.
and Clark sheer athleticism.
It's about your right to be informed.
For the stock market.
Today, there are real threats to press freedom
Reaching residential areas.
and your right to know about the world around us. We must protect our right to know, no matter what kind of news is important to you. Before it's too late, understand the threats. ProtectPressFreedom.org.
What is it, Julia? Why are you so excited, honey? Oh, hey, do you want to use your talker? With Julia's autism, using a talker can help her find the words she wants to say.
My dog.
You want to do something with Rose, Julia?
Play ball.
Do you want to play catch with Rose? Oh. I think Rose is excited to play catch too. Oh, Julia, you show us so many different ways to talk together. Oh, and play. Good catch, Rose. Okay, give Julia the ball. There you go. Okay, throw the ball, Julia. Oh.
For Julia's family, early screening for autism made a lifetime of difference. Find out more at screenforautism.org.
Okay, Julia, there you go. Whoa, another good throw. That's the way.
Basketball season is officially back here in Denton as both the men's and women's teams are back in action at the Super Pit. And here to talk UNT basketball are analysts Matthew Wagner and Tyler Luker. Now, guys, let's start with the women's team. Had an exhibition game last week, actually the first team in action at the Super Pit this year, an 87-66 win over Texas A&M International. Matthew, give me your thoughts on that win.
It was a dominant win, right? We saw that the team play good, right? There's some kinks to probably work out there. You know, definitely with the outside shooting, that was kind of a problem I saw. You know, the turnover rate was not as good as probably they should have been. But again, it's basically a tune-up game. You know, they're trying to get better at it, and they're going to work out those kinks later in the season. But from the thing, it was a pretty dominant performance.
Yeah, it's always kind of hard to judge an exhibition game. But Tyler, what were your thoughts on that win?
Well, on the offensive side, the second chance points, 29 points to TAMU International's 11. Great second quarter on defense, really separated them and caused this wire-to-wire game to kind of pull away here.
Now, there were some struggles, as you mentioned, Matthew, specifically in that first half. So now looking ahead to tonight, when they officially open the season at the Super Pit against Texas A&M Texarkana, Matthew, what has to change tonight?
They got to limit those turnovers, right? The passing was kind of out of sync in that first half we saw, you know, and they got to be better about that, right? There's times where they have the ball and they probably should throw it to somebody wide open, or, you know, they shot contested shots that probably shouldn't have been shot in the first place. So I think if you limit those opportunities and limit those mistakes, those mental errors, they're going to have more dominant wins throughout the season.
What do you think, Tyler?
Well, like Matthew was saying, the three-point shooting, 9 for 34 last game, got to improve. They had the 5th best three-point percentage last year, and they just got to get through some things and kind of work their way in to the season.
The season opener tonight is a little bit of a tune-up game as well against Texas A&M Texarkana. So, Matthew, really quick, just give me a key to the game to getting a win tonight and going 1-0.
The three-point shooting, like Tyler mentioned, you know, if you can hit, you know, at least, you know, I'd say above 45% of your shots, right, you're going to win easily. And that's the thing that they have to look at and to win.
What do you think, Tyler?
Just getting more comfortable, especially down the stretch. You got 9 newcomers on this team, and just learning to play more as like a cohesive unit, it's going to help them out.
Well, the women's had an exhibition game. Now, the men's team did not. And boy, did they survive disaster in that opening game, guys, over Southern Nazarene, a Division II private school. It was a pretty ugly game, 53-47 the final there. Matthew, they won the game, but what went wrong in that game?
Okay, listen. It was a tough game for them, right? Nobody was in sync. But listen, I'm going to say this now. A win's a win. Go Mean Green.
Yes.
All right, a win's a win, but nobody was in sync, right? Our shooting was off. Our passing was off. Defense looked good, but everything else did not look in sync. And especially, we'll get into it later, our free throws, abysmal.
Yeah.
So, that's just kind of something I noticed.
What do you think, Tyler?
Well, dating back to really last season against UTEP, the shooting's been so off, and they really haven't gotten through things. They can't hit from free throw. They can't hit from deep. They're just struggling to shoot, and I think they really need to improve on that.
Yeah, the free throws, if they had just made some free throws, that would have been a blowout game, specifically in the first half. Sure. That would not have been a sweat at the end of the game. 13 of 21, not bad stats, but it was like Abu couldn't make shots. Only Kai Huntsberry was 8 for 8 from the line, but everyone else seemed to be struggling. So, Matthew, how concerning are these free throw woes that just continue from last season?
I mean, we saw, I told you after the game, we were at the game, and I said, coach needs to have some free throw practice after the game, but, practice is different from the game, right? So I think that just, working with the team and getting better each game, it could definitely help them in the long run. And I said it before, and I'll say it again, we owe Kai Huntsberry a $10 steak dinner, man. He absolutely balled out in the second half and saved us from losing to a Division II school.
That's true. What do you think of the free throws, Tyler?
Well, yeah, Huntsberry 8 for 8 to close out the game on this 11-0 run to really come back and save yourself. They're going to get better when Tyler Perry comes back, 84% career free throw shooter. But yeah, like you said, they need to practice. Last year we saw it with Abu. He was terrible from the free throw line at the beginning of the year, and then he kind of goes on this run where he's hitting most of his free throws. And it just shows that if they practice that more, it can really pay off in the long run.
Sure.
Well, I'm not really sure where you can get a $10 steak dinner, but let me know what that restaurant is. Abu Usman was actually the MVP of that game, named by the team. I think it should have been Kai Huntsberry, but as you mentioned, Tyler Perry was out that game, is expected to be back either this Sunday against St. Mary's or hopefully next weekend before Fresno State. Do you see free throws as an ongoing concern this season, Matthew, or was that just a game one thing?
I think it's a game one thing, right? Like Tyler mentioned, he started out slow, right, and gets better. I think the team's going to do that. They're going to get better as they go, and I think that you have to. The teams, it's a first game. The jitters or whatever, the mechanics aren't 100% there, but they're going to get better. And I expect this team to have a better free throw shooting going on.
Yeah. What do you think, Tyler?
We have to hope they get better because last year, ranking dead last in the conference while also being the best team in the conference. It's showing something, and they really need to improve this year because it's just going to make them even better.
Now, this Sunday is going to be a huge game for the Mean Green, going on the road to St. Mary's, a team that beat Gonzaga last year, played pretty good in the conference tournament as well. They're a dominant team. This could end up being a quad one game. So just give me your thoughts on this St. Mary's game, Matthew, and what would a win mean after this bad effort in game one?
A win means everything, right? For a team that beat Gonzaga, I think for Mean Green to win this game, defense has got to lock down. And we saw it a little bit against Southern Nazarene. The blocks, the steals were key. So for them to beat this high-powered offense, they're going to have to step up in the defensive, and Tyler Perry's going to have to go off, and I think he will. I cannot wait to see him.
Yeah, we got to get him back. But what do you think of this St. Mary's team, Tyler?
Well, yeah, the high-powered offense. Last year, UNT had the slowest pace of play because they slowed everything down. They really got to play that game again. Got to start shooting well because if you don't in this game, you're going to drop it. But we got to start looking towards March because a quad one win might have CUSA have 2 at-large teams, might not need to win the conference tournament.
Now, Tyler Perry, hopefully going to be back. Ruben Jones is expected to be out for a little bit. He got hurt during the offseason, had surgery actually. A lot of injury concerns right now with this team, Matthew. How much did that hurt them in game one, and how much do we need Ruben and Tyler back?
We need Ruben and Tyler back bad, right? I saw Tyler Perry on the sidelines, or I guess on the court during the game, and he looked like he wanted to play. And I felt so bad for him, man. But when we get him back, he's going to go off. I'm expecting at least 35, 40 points in this next game. I'm excited to see him play.
Really quick, Tyler.
It's extremely important to get both of them back because they're both great ball handlers. They like carrying the ball up the floor. But Tyler, we really need him back because he's got that slow heartbeat, great in the clutch, showed it last year. Getting him would be so important to have a guy, 5 minutes left in the game, you know who's taking the shot.
Oh, yeah. TP for president, 100%.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's basketball season here in Denton, while soccer season has come to a heartbreaking close. We're going to recap their loss in the Conference USA tournament to UTSA coming up next.
Tira la basura en el bote. En el bote, en el bote, en el bote. Oiga mi amigo, Don Messi, Texas. Oiga mi amigo, Don Messi. somos papichulos. Recuerden, don't mess with Texas, y'all.
Me llamo Raquel Mendoza y esta es mi vida. Mis hijos están envueltos en muchas actividades. Eso requiere mucho estrés y correr para acá y para allá. A veces mi familia necesita un escape. Este lugar trae mucha paz y hay mucha calma, mucha naturaleza. Quiero regresar con mi familia más seguido.
Encuentra el bosque más cercano en descubreelbosque.org. El bosque, más cerca de lo que crees.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back into Sports Zone. I'm your host, Justin Ballou. Well, soccer season has officially come to an end for the Mean Green after a disappointing loss to UTSA in the Conference USA tournament last week. And here to give their thoughts on the Mean Green soccer season, we have analysts Mackenzie Freeman and Fazan Amer. So guys, let's get into this recent game. 2-1 the final score in the semifinals. Mackenzie, what did you think went wrong in that game? Only one goal for the Mean Green.
Right. It was hard to see us go out like that. You know, we let them score 2 points early in the first half of the game, and that caused us to play catch up for the rest of the game. I was also sort of disappointed in Olivia Klein's performance. She's one of our top scorers, but she really didn't do much for this team in this game.
What did you think went wrong?
Well, I think it's important to understand that the UNT soccer program entered Friday on a 5-match winning streak. However, they had their defense under attack for a majority of the first half, and they allowed 2 goals on set pieces and failed to make clearance in the match's first 31 minutes. And I mean, that's just a recipe for losing, and losing hasn't been in the vocabulary of this UNT soccer program under John Hedlund's tenure as head coach.
Well, UTSA actually went all the way as a 6th seed in the Conference USA tournament. So UNT wasn't the only team that they upset, but certainly disappointing. 12-6-2 was the final record for the Mean Green, 7-2-1 in conference play. For a team that always is expected to win the conference championship, Mackenzie, was this a year of underperforming for UNT?
I would say no. If you looked at our record from last year, we were 3-3-2 in conference, putting us at one of the lower positions in the conference. But going into this season, we finished it off with a 7-2-1 record. So I wouldn't consider that underperforming. Disappointing maybe, but underperforming, no.
That's a good way to put it. What do you got, Fazan?
Yeah, I mean, as much as it would have been great to add to the record 8 CUSA titles for this soccer program, I think it's important to understand what Mackenzie said. It was night and day from last year, and John Hedlund even reiterated that in the press conference after the game, saying that this team had a heck of a run, and this is just the beginning to a much bigger process.
And they did improve upon the record, as you mentioned, Mackenzie, but for a team, like I said, that's expected to compete for a conference tournament or championship every single year in the tournament, how disappointing are you, or are you with just losing in the semifinal to UTSA of all things, too? Worst team to lose to.
Yeah, I found that disappointing, but if we go a couple weeks back, we lost our 65 home conference win streak, and I think for the players, knowing that you just ended a streak that dates back to 2008, that puts a lot of stress on your mind. You know, trying to recover from that is just a pressure that a lot of these young girls can't take.
Yeah, well, lots to improve on for this team for sure. So let's talk about what needs to change going into next season. Mackenzie, what do you think?
Like I said, we have a lot of young girls on our team, but if we can build up our team around Danny Jacobson, she's our freshman goalie. We only have 2 defenders leaving next year, so if we can use those defenders and kind of build that core right there and emphasize our defense, I think for our offense, you know, defense carries offense most times.
Fazan, what do you think needs to improve?
Speaking of the young players on the team, we do have 2 seniors who led most of this season in scoring, Gina Watts and Allie Bird. Those 2 players need to be accounted for as offensive replacements this upcoming season, or else this offense is just going to continue to sputter out of control.
Now let's talk about the positives from this season. Mackenzie, who is your MVP pick from this team?
Oh, definitely Olivia Klein. She was one of our top scorers. She won multiple awards this season. She definitely just carried our team into, you know, what we did this year.
Certainly the diamond in the rough this year on the team, I would say.
Right.
Falzon, who was your MVP pick?
Olivia Klein as well, but also got to give an honorable mention to Allie Bird, the senior. Both of them played a vital role in getting this team to where they are. However, Allie Bird will no longer be with us after this year, so as I mentioned before, just John Hedlund needs to do a better job of recruiting and creating and acclimating this team into what it should
Yeah,
be.
and let's talk about John Hedlund. Do you see him, Falzon, returning next year for yet another season with this team?
I do see him returning for the upcoming season, and I really wanted to hone in on this. When you have such a great coach who's recalibrated around not just UNT, but in college sports as this great head coach, it really takes the pressure off the UNT program in itself to recruit, because people are attracted towards a guy like Nick Saban, a guy like John Hedlund. Obviously, those are two different conferences and two different sports, but they hone in on two aspects of those players will just come to us.
Mackenzie, what do you think it would mean for this team to have John Hedlund back this year, really quick?
As we're changing conferences, he's dealt with that before. So I think it'd be wise to keep a coach who's experienced that going into the next season, where we're going against teams like FSU, who's currently ranked high in the top 10. There's 4 teams in that conference in themselves that are ranked. So we need a coach who knows what he's doing.
Well, no more UNT soccer games this season, but they'll be back in full force next year. The Dallas Cowboys, guys, it's a big game coming up this weekend against the Green Bay Packers. We're going to preview it all coming up next.
Make-A-Wish grants a wish every 17 minutes. I know that sounds pretty magical, but in fact, it takes more than magic. It takes muscle.
So, when a kid like Fabian wishes to be a superstar, things happen. Whoa! Or when Kahim transforms into Super Kahim.
He feels invincible. It's because wishes have proven physical and emotional benefits that can give children with critical illnesses a higher chance of survival.
Help us make sure every wish comes true. Join us at wish.org.
In America, the zip code you're born in can determine your future. The Y helps fill the opportunity gap with education programs for all. For a better us, support your local Y today.
The Dallas Cowboys are fresh off their bye week as they get ready for a big matchup this weekend in Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers. And here to preview this weekend's games are analysts Caleb Blanton and Matthew Wagner. Guys, the Packers, they've lost 5 in a row. They lost the Lions last weekend 15-9, just an ugly game. For the Cowboys, though, they're well rested, playing against a 3-6 Green Bay Packers team. Caleb, how big of a game is this for Dallas?
Honestly, some people might think of this as a big game just because of their history with the Packers, having some tough games really against them. But honestly, I don't see this as that big of a game just because of, like you said, how the Packers are performing. They're not performing that well. Their weapons, they don't have really that many offensive weapons. And it's going to be really hard to play against this top Dallas defense.
Yeah, those wide receivers have been struggling for the Green Bay Packers so far. But Matthew, how big of a game is this for Dallas this weekend?
I think if it's, as Caleb said, it's not as big as a game, but I think it's kind of a big game, right? Because if Dallas loses, you deserve to get scorned and shamed for that, right? But I think, Dallas should be able to win easily. We'll probably get into it a little bit later, but Rodgers has really sucked the last couple of games, be honest with you, and Dallas should easily dismantle this team.
Yeah, so there's no game to recap for us last week for the Cowboys, so we're going to mainly focus on just what is wrong in Green Bay, and that's my next question for you, Caleb. What the heck is going on with the Packers this year?
Well, I want to focus in on the offensive weapons. When you trade a guy like Devontae Adams, one of the top receivers in the league, you have to replace him with talent, and they haven't done that. I mean, they got a rookie, but he hasn't been performing that well. And then look at their number one receiver right now. It's Allen Lazard with only 427 yards. That's not going to cut it in the NFL today. You have to throw the ball, and they just can't throw it that well.
Yeah, they've become notorious for refusing to take wide receivers in the first round of the draft, that's for sure. Matthew, what's wrong in Green Bay?
I like a lot of people are looking at scapegoats and looking for finger point, and I have to finger point to Rodgers, right? I mean, he only had 291 yards and 3 interceptions in the red zone against the Lions, and that does not help at all. And I'm going to say this now, it might be a hot take. I think he's gone after this year. I think he's going to go the way of Brett Favre and retire, then go back as a New York Jet. That's my guess. Might be a future New York Jet.
And you can see his frustration, too. On that last play last week, he just threw the ball to where he thought the receiver was going to be and then just threw his hands up and said, I'm done here. Yeah, 3-6. But despite the struggles for the Packers, guys, this rivalry has been very one-sided. 8 out of the last 10 games that these teams have played, the Packers have won. So, Caleb, why can't the Cowboys get over the hump of the Packers?
They just haven't been able to do the things that they need to do. Obviously, in games like the Dez catch, things like that happen. So that hurts. A game you can win that gets blown out. But they've had tough games, of course, but I see the tide turning now because, like we've been saying here, the Packers are not doing well. The Cowboys, they're doing really well defensively, offensively, they're starting to get it going.
Matthew, why do you think this has been so one-sided?
I mean, you look at it's the coaching, right? They have the former Packers. Dallas has enough Mike McCarthy now, right? And I think it's mostly kind of been him. And Rodgers has been playing up to his elite talent, right? He's had guys that throw a Randall Cobb, Devontae, as we talked about. But now that's gone. A lot of his Rodgers' so-called weapons are gone, as we mentioned, right? So now Dallas has a definite opportunity to take care of this and take this Packers team behind the woodshed.
And follow-up question for you, Matthew. Mike McCarthy, obviously, as you mentioned, used to coach Green Bay. Now he's going back to Green Bay. So what factors do you think that plays in this game?
It's going to be a revenge game for him, right? Because when the fans in Green Bay wanted him kicked out after every loss, right? And so now for him to go back into Green Bay and back into Lambeau to whoop this Green Bay team, I can't wait to see it. It's going to be fun.
The Cowboys 2-8 in their last 10 games against the Packers. Hasn't been too good, but with them struggling this year, Caleb, is this the year that Dallas can win this?
Definitely. Oh, look at the defense, offense, special teams. Dallas is better in all forms of the ball. I expect Aaron Rodgers to have a horrible day just because I think the Dallas defensive line is just going to go after Aaron Rodgers. I see Parsons having a big game. And then also the offensive line haven't been doing well. They've allowed 18 sacks, so I think that's really going to be the big key of this game.
And it's always tough to play in Lambeau, too. But, Matthew, is this the year for the Cowboys to finally beat them?
Yeah, for sure. I think, obviously don't count out your opponent early, obviously, but definitely with the way things have been going in Green Bay, the turmoil that's coming out of there, I don't see them winning this game. There's too many distractions right now, and Rodgers is becoming one of those distractions by finger pointing everyone else but himself. And we'll see Dallas. They should be able to dismantle this team again, but you never know. You never know.
Let's hit some keys of the game, Caleb. What do the Cowboys have to do to finally beat this Packers team this weekend?
Give the ball to Tony Pollard. The Packers have 2 linebackers on injured reserve. They also have another linebacker injured, so expect Tony Pollard to have a huge game. I expect him to do better than last week, even though that was a pretty good game. But I expect him to do even better this week. And then rush the passer, rush Aaron Rodgers, because if you pressure him, it's going to be hard for him to get into these weapons. He's going to have a hard day.
Oh, yeah, sure. Micah Parsons is coming for Aaron Rodgers this weekend, that's for sure. Matthew, keys of the game real quick.
Like you said, they have a linebacker core that's injured, and they don't have a really good quarterback core, right? We're going to see, I say you dice them up over the middle, right? You're looking for CD, you look for anybody, right? And I think that with Dak, he's going to be passing the ball pretty well, and we might see Pollard get some touches, right? But I think, depending on how this game goes, you're going to see a lot of passing, you're probably see a lot of running. I give him 5 touchdowns today, just for Pollard alone again.
5 touchdowns for Pollard.
Easily.
Wow. Well, it's the Cowboys and the Packers in America's Game of the Week this Sunday at 3:30, so make sure to tune in. It's going to be a great game, guys. That's it for us here on Sportszone. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at NTTV_sports, and we'll see you next week for our season finale.
Many medicines used to treat colds and flu contain acetaminophen, a pain reliever and fever reducer found in hundreds of over-the-counter and prescription medicines. But taking too much or more than one medication containing acetaminophen per day can damage your liver. So always read the label and don't take acetaminophen if you drink 3 or more alcoholic drinks every day. To learn more, visit fda.gov/OTC pain info. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Food and Drug Administration.